asking you a few questions about the National Wildlife Refuge. So if you want to just give a brief introduction, what is your name and what you do here?
My name is Sofia Martinez. I'm co-director of Los Jardines Institute here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I'm from New Mexico, from northern New Mexico originally, and a small town up in northern New Mexico.
First question, what is your relationship / connection to Valle De Oro, the National Wildlife Refuge?
Well, basically our connection right now through the Los Jardines Institute is that we've worked with the Valle De Oro pretty much since a little bit after its inception to look at issues of environmental justice in the Mountain View community and its adjoining community, San Jose. My connection to the Valle De Oro before Los Jardines Institute was really living in the community. I remember driving out to the dairy at the time and seeing what looked like little dog houses with small calves in there, and just driving around the community. That's kind of like the image I remember of the land that is now Valle De Oro. We've done a lot of work in that community. Other than living there, we also did a lot of environmental justice work in the community. Today, Los Jardines Institute has worked with the Valle De Oro to create the first environmental and economic justice strategic plan for any public site in the United States. So we're really proud of that work of the plan. Especially, we're glad that the 570 acres on which the Valle De Oro sits is now a refuge, a place that we know that there will not be any industry or other type of dirty or polluting industry locating there. So connection is number one, to be grateful that it's more of an open space and a positive place for the community, and two, that we're proud of the fact that we've been able to really encourage the refuge to be more inclusive of the community, to take the community more into account as the host community for the refuge, and adopt the environmental and economic justice strategic plan that we work together with very closely with the Valle De Oro and the Friends of the Valle De Oro.
Could you give us a brief intro about yourself?
Yeah, my name is Jose Bencomo. Back then I was known as JV here. My family used to live here, my dad and my siblings.
Can you explain what your relationship is here, what is now Valle De Oro, and how it began?
I used to live here and also work as well here. Mostly, my dad did the irrigation and I did the sawing the hay.
Okay. Was that a lot of work, doing the hay?
Pretty much, yeah. A lot of lifting.
Oh, I bet. So where was the housing and the houses located here?
Well, the manager's house would be right there where the visitor center is at. My pop's house was on this right there, and the workers' houses were on this side. Like 3 or 4 houses, and the rest were mobile homes on the north end.
Wow. So this space was all pretty much used up, huh?
Pretty much used up.
Nice. And do you think it's important to have a sanctuary for animals?
It is very important to have a sanctuary for animals, because lands are going bye-bye, pretty much.
Yeah. And do you recall of any stories, I guess, of experiences, maybe good, bad, or scary, that you could share?
Good? We had balloon fiesta, they come land over here. And scary stuff, well, during the foggy nights. Or you can see weird creatures here, weird things in the sky at times.
Really? Could you elaborate on that a little bit more, do you think?
You can see lights, whizzing by, or you see creatures in the long distance, but you can't figure out. You're thinking like, what is it? Could be a coyote or something else.
Any encounters, I guess
My personal encounter, when I was doing irrigations one night, I didn't sleep for 3 days because I was trying to make sure that the ditches don't overflow. So I didn't sleep for 3 days. Maybe I was just tired. I was driving along on the side of the ditch, And I was like in my truck driving, and I see something, a creature, coming inside. And I'm driving fast. How is he catching up? So I step on it, and I'm like, no, he's still following me. So I just slammed my brakes, and I just got out because I was scared. So I just, yelled hard as much as I could. And when I was turning around, the thing I know was a little coyote. It was like giving me a stare. I'm like, what's wrong with this person? I don't know who was scaring me or the coyote.
Oh, wow. So it didn't seem like it was a coyote, but when it got closer, then it was like it
At
showed
first,
itself.
it was not a coyote. No, it was like a tall, bigger, rounded figure with 4 legs, running along with the truck. And when I turned around, it's just, I don't know, I was scared, And I turned this way. Oh, it's just a coyote.
Wow.
So I don't know if I think disappeared before the coyote arrived or something.
Yeah.
I
Interesting.
just shrugged it off, I'm like, I gotta go back and change the waters.
Wow. Interesting. Last question. What does National Wildlife Refuge mean to you?
To me, a sanctuary for a place for me to relax during the weekends, after long days, I'll work.
So do you find refuges peaceful, I
Yes.
guess? Like,
Peaceful place to come, relax, away from the city,
yeah. Well, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for the insight.
I'm Troy Rivas. I sell real estate here in Albuquerque, actually throughout New Mexico. I have 2 sons, Camden and Maxon, 4 and 2. I've been in New Mexico for about 17 years, originally from Maryland. And yeah, I love this place. I love the state. It's a pretty nice place. So.
How did you hear about Valle De Oro?
So coming back from my background in Maryland, we used to do all the national wildlife refuges out there. Patuxent National Wildlife Refuge is like the big one just south of Baltimore. So my mom was always about getting to nature, being a part of nature and the such. So when we moved here, our first thing was, where are the national wildlife refuges? And the closest one was, Bosque del Apache, then you have, I think, Civita, that's right outside of Berlin. So we used to go to those all the time. Then when President Obama was rolling out his urban, like, national wildlife plans and stuff like that, we saw this was on the list. So we always kind of twiddled our thumbs, waiting until it came open. Then when it came open, my mom first heard about it. It's like, hey, it's opening next week. And then we've been coming ever since, so.
Do at Valle De Oro?
Well, I do the bird viewing. We grew up bird watching and stuff like that. We have, like, I always have my camera in my car, my binoculars, and especially during coming this season when it comes to the fall on the migrating birds. Something a lot of people don't know about New Mexico is we have the most different species of birds in our state than any other state in the United States. So that, as a birder, it's kind of neat to have that right in your, I guess, backyard when it comes to Albuquerque. So I try to come down as much as possible down here. There's a lot of things. You can unwind by the river, you could do a little hiking, and then of course you have the birding. And there's a bald eagle nest not too far on the other side of the river, so we always try to sneak and try to find those guys there too when they migrate down. But it's a good place that we bring our kids, because I remember my mom bringing us when we were kids to the Chesapeake Bay, to the ocean, to Aztec and Chincoteague Islands, and also of course the Patuxent National Wildlife Refuge. So I remember the fun and then the intrigue of lifting a rock and seeing a salamander or a snake kind of run off, and so I want to instill that same kind of values with my 2 kiddos. And yeah, we try to come down here as much as possible.
Do you think it's important to have a wildlife refuge in an urban setting?
A couple reasons. As in real estate, you want the more houses, the more opportunity for business. But I think with this generation coming up, they're realizing there was a gap in the respect of the natural lands. Mm-hmm. That we have all this land, and they say, oh, build. We could build communities. We could do this, all that stuff like that. But it's taken away. Of course, you have the natural resources, you have the animal habitats, but it is a retreat, and it's kind of getting back to who we are as human beings and getting back to nature, getting back to kind of like the simple things. Even if it's a half a day or a full day, or you're just out here for 15, 20 minutes. There's a lot of times I just drive around in my car with my camera waiting for a bird to pop up or something like that. Oh, there's a pheasant, take a picture. And to me, that really clears a lot of whatever anxiety or stresses you have in the day. So I think the importance of having that here not just for clarity for us as adults, but for education for the kids to come up as well. So with my kiddos, I like to bring them here so they can realize you can go out and touch things. You don't have to be afraid to climb a tree or to lift a rock or even jump in the river. Like you don't have to have that fear, but you have to have respect for it, because if this fleets, then a lot of things fleet as well. If we decide to push this away or take it away, which sadly, I mean, I don't want to get political, but how the current administration is giving these lands so you could drill, you could do this, and it's very sad because you're losing natural habitat, but then you're losing that love and care for this beautiful land that we do have.
Okay, well, my name is Patty Rivas, and I'm originally from the East Coast, from Maryland, and I've been here in Albuquerque for about 20 years. And so I brought my kids out here because of the beauty of New Mexico, and my goal was for us to make this an adventurous place for us. And I work at a mission training center. I work alongside a church, and just right across the river here. So I'm here in the South Valley, and I'm loving every moment of it.
What is your relationship to Valle De Oro, and if you remember, how did it start?
Okay, what I remember, actually, I'm just a private citizen who enjoys the bosque, and I remember seeing billboards, maybe back in 2012, talking about the development of this area. And I knew that it was on 2nd Street, but I wasn't for sure where it was at, so I was trying to find my way. So years ago, I would drive down to this area, and I said, I don't see anything. What are they talking about? What are they building? So over the years, every time I would see something on the news or just literature at the library, I'd always just make sure I, stayed on top of it, and I did my best to try to be at meetings and things like that. But I just knew that this was an important initiative for our area, and I just wanted to always be its friend. And so.
And what are your thoughts on how far the refuge has come today?
Oh wow, I'm just amazed because for example, I've traveled to San Francisco and New York, and you have the Golden Gate Park and you have Central Park, and I know it doesn't compare to that, but what we're building here to me is something that's going to last for generations, beyond generations. And when I look at the partnerships that we have with the Wildlife Service and the county here, it's just something that it's just going to be something that's going to last forever. But I just feel that that it's something that's needed, and I'm glad that we have it, because I hear of urban sprawl, and I'm thankful that they've preserved this area for our wildlife, but also for education for our children, and even for myself as an adult. I was able to meet some of the geologists or some other workers here, and they love the land. They love learning about the animals, so that the love that they're showing us, I want to show other people. So,
what do you enjoy about the Urban Wildlife Refuge here?
Oh, just some days I just need a place just for peace, a sanctuary for myself. But I enjoy the fact that other people here in the city and around the country are able to enjoy this urban wildlife area. You look at other urban wildlife areas across the country, and this one is very unique because of the Rio Grande. And I feel that just learning more and more about the animals, the habitat, and then how other groups come together to make this possible. I think the Boy Scouts were coming out last week, and we have youth corps that have come from other states just to make this place a better place, not only for people here in Albuquerque, but just for people abroad. So.
If the land was purchased by developers or real estate, how would that make you feel?
Oh, that probably wouldn't have been a good thing. So that's why early on when I was following the plans, I was so thankful that it wasn't going that direction to be developed. I know that the land here in Albuquerque is getting smaller and smaller, but I think that that would have been a detriment to our community and for the future of our children learning about this great area, because I think most of the bosque is developed, and this piece that's being spared is actually an awesome thing. So I would have been upset if the initiative would have went towards developers.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank
for your time.
you. Thank you. You all are awesome. Thank
So
you.
you can tell me about yourself and your little family background and what do you do at VDO?
Cool. Well, my name is Jennifer Owen White, and I am the refuge manager here at the Valle De Oro National Wildlife Refuge. I was the very first staff member for the refuge, hired in 2013. So just about 6 months after the refuge was formed, I came on as the first staff member, and I was a one-person staff.
Oh, wow.
But now I'm lucky enough to have 7 other really great people who work with me, as well as tons of partner organizations and youth groups who help make Valle De Oro a reality. I am not originally from New Mexico. I am from Houston, and being a city girl is a big part of why I do what I do at Valle De Oro. You know that Valle De Oro is the first urban refuge in the Southwest and the first refuge in the country being built from the ground up under these urban standards of excellence and this urban wildlife conservation program. And so for me, as a city girl who grew up only finding nature kind of in the little places of green space or parks that were right around my home, I knew how important a place like this could be. Before I came here, I was the refuge manager at the Santa Ana National Wildlife Refuge, which is actually along the Rio Grande in South Texas on the border with Mexico. And so I was working on the river just all the way further south in the McAllen-Brownsville area.
Oh wow, it's really interesting. So we could take a seat. What were your motives starting Valle De Oro?
Well, I feel like I'm just the luckiest person. I got chosen to lead this project, but this project really got started by the people in this community and by Fish and Wildlife Service and the Trust for Public Land, the Friends of Valle De Oro, and lots of other partners like AMAFCA and Bernalillo County who came together to make this happen. So I came in and the community already had fought to establish the refuge. So my job is not to build or design or start this refuge. My job is to work for our community and to help community members see their vision come to life. My job is to facilitate the dreams of the people in the Mountain View community, in the South Valley, in Albuquerque, coming to life on this property.
So would you say that Valle De Oro has a really strong connection with the community, like it's hand in hand?
Definitely. I think that's one thing I noticed coming in. Obviously, I was an outsider and I didn't want to pretend like I had all the answers. I may be a biologist and an environmental educator, but I don't know the things that the people in this neighborhood know. The people who worked on the dairy, the people who've lived here for generations. And so I wanted to be really respectful to the community because it was this community who fought for this property to be preserved as a national wildlife refuge. You probably know that we're in a highly industrial area, and when this dairy went up for sale, people were really worried about what was going to happen on this property. They were concerned that the water rights would be sold off or that industrial facilities would move here and really take away the only green space that people had to walk their dogs or ride their horses or look at butterflies. And so it's really because of the people in this community that Valle De Oro exists. And so it's my responsibility as the manager to make sure that those community members feel like they have a role in helping to turn it into what they dream it can be.
So I know in the 1900s it was a dairy farm. So were you here on the property to see the dairy farm before the whole construction happened with the wildlife refuge?
I didn't get to see it as an active dairy farm, but I did get to see it when I started in the summer of 2013. There were multiple other buildings on the property, these big pits in the ground, which is where there used to be grain silos. There were lots of kind of old rundown pieces of what was the dairy that we worked to clean up, but we also worked to protect and take care of some of the things on the property that really told that history of the land. So we had to find this balance between making the area safe for people to come out and explore and enjoy, and being honorable to the history of the land, to the Price family, the Valley Gold Dairies. And really, that's why the refuge has its name, Valle De Oro. It's because this was the Valley Gold Dairies.
Correct. Do you think it's important to have a wildlife refuge? I mean, as you mentioned earlier, this was an industrial, or it still is an industrial environment or area.
I, of course, think, you know, it's my job. I do think that it's important to have wildlife refuges. A lot of people think that wildlife refuges are just for plants and animals, but I really believe that wildlife refuges are for people, and that by establishing this here, that we are protecting the land, we are protecting the water and the cleanliness of the water, we're helping with air quality, we're doing all sorts of things to provide people places that they can be outside in a safe and healthy way in a highly industrial neighborhood. So wildlife refuges are very important for wildlife and plants, but Valle de Oro is showing that wildlife refuges are also really important to the quality of life and the health of people in our communities.
And if you were an animal on the refuge, what animal would it be and why?
If I were an animal on the refuge, I would be... It's such a hard question. I love all the animals. I will say probably that I would be a kestrel, and the kestrel is kind of our unofficial mascot for Valle de Oro. And a kestrel is a small falcon, and they really love grasslands and they love hunting in the grassy areas. And kestrels are small but mighty. They're really strong little falcons, but they're little, and I think that's what Valle de Oro is, that it's a small refuge that's having a really big impact. And kestrels, of course, are really at home in the rural areas in the country and also in the city, and we hope that Valle de Oro can be kind of that bridge between agricultural dairy into native habitat to connect with people from the city.
What is the future of VDO? Where do you see VDO? What new projects are you guys trying to install? Just the future of VDO.
So in the past almost 6 years that I've worked here, we've spent a long time getting lots of ideas and lots of input and lots of times for the community to give their vision for what's going to happen out here. And that's everyone from preschool and elementary school kids up through university students, through families and senior citizens who have all given ideas. And based on that, we've come up with a conceptual design for the refuge. And over the next 5 years, we're going to see a ton of changes on this property. Just so far this year, we've built our first wetland, the Playa wetland. We're going to be building our first trail later this year. We started our first riparian or bosque restoration by planting lots of cottonwoods and willows. And like I said, over the next 5 years, you're going to see more trails built, more wetlands, more grassland habitat, a visitor center, all kinds of really amazing things happen out here. And I think the coolest thing about it is, number one, those ideas came from the people here in this community in the South Valley in Albuquerque. And number two, it's going to be built as much as possible by our community as well. The plants are going to be planted by youth crews and school groups and Boy Scouts and Girl Scout groups. And the trails are going to be made by community members who come out to our Build Your Refuge Day. So this is a refuge that is dreamt up and built by and for our community here.
Awesome. Thank you for your time.
No problem. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Valle de Oro for giving us this opportunity to share and elevate the voices of the community.
Thank you to everyone who participated in interviews, such as Troy and Patty Rivas.
Special thank you to Jose and Sally.
And a special thanks to Sophia Martinez and Richard Moore.
And a very special thank you to Jennifer Owen White.
I'm Mercedes.
I'm Merlin.
I'm Raina.
I'm Sheldon.
I'm Dakota.